What was one impactful moment that tested your faith in God in serious ways?
So it's such a great question. I grew up in a very Christian environment without too much turbulence in my life and started a nursing career that I dearly loved and was in it for over 16 years. But in
Wow.
2008, 2009, I had went into the most period of turmoil that I've ever had in my life, where my nursing career was called into question to the point that the practice I was in was closed. There were some political things that were motivated around that because at that time I was in the specialty of pain management, and I think most people know how controversial that can be at times. And so all of a sudden, I found myself without an identity because I had put so much of myself into that career. But even more so, a few months after the practice closed and I'm in this fighting for my reputation, my father passed away and he was like the rock of our family. And then 6 to 8 months after that, my husband at 47 was diagnosed with prostate cancer. Now he's good today. There's no worries. We're all clear of it. But you can imagine within about a period of a year, my life went from being on top of the world to having a promising career, to not having too much tragedy in my life that had occurred at that point, to all of this befalling me. And it was a real test of faith for sure. I had to decide whether I was going to lean in to my faith or whether I was going to walk away from it. So a lot of people have that issue. They come into that crossroads of their faith. And so I decided to lean into my faith instead of pulling out of my faith. And I'm fortunate that God opened up an entirely new path for me that is at the center of my life today.
Now, I know exactly what you're talking about, as I have been also tested here and there with faith in either God or different types of gods or descriptions of gods or names of gods, right? I grew up with various religions. And I would love to know, because you are mentioning so many people lean away from faith, right? I can see that today more than ever. What made you lean in?
I was very fortunate that the home that I grew up in was a very solid Christian home. I'm very grateful for that. I know there's a lot of brokenness in the world that people are coming out of. But I, at a young age, was very much instilled in faith. And so at that point, I just knew there was something almost inside that said, I am here. And if you will believe that I am here, I will show you who I am. And so I just chose in that moment to to lean into that faith and to see if God is and if God is all that he says that he is. And I think that's kind of the challenge. Will we lean in? Will we give God the chance to prove that he is the God that he says that he is?
And many would go more into the direction of seeing things, bad things that are happening, as something that would explain that God doesn't exist because he would not let you go through this turmoil and this pain. And others would say, well, this is your punishment, right? This is the other direction. How did you explain to yourself what was happening to you while leaning into faith?
I think when you have studied the scriptures well and you believe in faith in the scriptures, and that would be for me the Bible, scripture tells us and models for us that bad things sometimes happen to good people, and sometimes good things happen to bad people, and that is life. And so it was not a super surprise that something came along like that. It's just in the fashion that it came. And so we as Christians have to really lean into that word that we've grown up, that we've read, those stories that you see in the Bible. Life is not fair, but God is just. And so what happens is we don't realize that in order to have a testimony to prove to you my faith, to prove to you that my God is who he says he is, I have to go through something and come out on the other side. Up until that point in my life, again, my life had been relatively easy. Everything went in the right direction. And so this was my test. And as I proceeded through it, and now as I look back, I know it has become my testimony. I can't comfort someone in the things that they have been through if I have not been through it. That seems insincere. And so sometimes God does give us a test that we have to go through. There are things that happen to us. The thing to do is to be positive, to lean into what's happening, to trust, and then realize that we can take all of that pain and turn it into purpose, and that we can use it for the better overall good of humanity. We can show someone else how they can make it out of their situation that seems so tragic. And so that was my purpose for leaning in. That was my purpose for trying to walk it out. And now I have this testimony that I share with people, and they say, wow, I can't believe you went through all of that and came out on the other side. And you are as passionate and joyful and still in your faith the way you are. But that is part of having a testimony. You cannot have a testimony without a test. And so that particular period was my test.
I personally feel that many people misunderstand what God is, and without going too much into it, I feel there is a little bit of entitlement also in it, that they believe if God exists, He would not let certain things happen. He would not create bad or evil people or things, right? While I personally believe God is a certain frequency or energy that you can use, right? You have to be the active one, as you just described, going through whatever life confronts you with and staying with it, sticking with it, really having the commitment, because you make that decision once, I believe, and you can repeat your decision every day. If you're not very firm in your faith, right? You can decide every day, but you have to kind of have that type of commitment. And many people think, oh my God, this bad thing happened to me, there cannot be a God. But I feel it's the opposite. Because those things are happening in this universe, you have the choice to actually choose God, choose a certain path that will help you to overcome those bad things, right? And I think this is the trick that many fail to use, and then blame other things or people for whatever happens in their life. And I find it so brave and fascinating that you committed to it, right? And you stayed with it. And I also love that you talk about God-sized dreams, and I want to know what that means.
So I believe that we're all created by this great creator of the universe, right? I call him God, and I believe in the person of Jesus Christ, of course. But other than that, I believe that he has created us for a purpose. And so we really want to figure out what everybody wants to know, why are we here? Right? How did we get here and why are we here? And I believe that God created us for big purpose. And I believe he created us to live in unity. And so chasing a God-sized dream means that you understand that God has given you something more to do than just what is inside your reach. What he's usually given us to do is way above what we can think about and conceive. And because it's so big, we have to invite him into the process to complete it. And so that is a God-sized dream. A God-sized dream is a dream that you have to do good in the world, to contribute to the greater good, but it's so far out of your reach that there has to be something more there, a relationship with God in order to accomplish. And that is the relationship he invites us into. He doesn't put us here, and he doesn't direct what we have to do. Like you were saying, we can choose to lean in our faith. We can choose to leave our faith. That's the free will that he has given us. But if we will choose to take this journey with him, if we will choose to be in the adventure with him, there is no telling where he can take us. And for me personally, we can talk about it as we go. My adventure, my God-sized dream has not only started to blossom here in the United States, but has taken me to Kenya, somewhere I never thought I would be. And so that is God-sized, right? I can't cross two continents without something holding me up. And for me, it's my
Mm.
faith.
You named your business She Steps Forward. Now, I feel there is a specific meaning and a purpose behind that name because of your faith and your commitment to it. And what does it personally mean to you to step forward, and why did you name your business this way?
So it was funny as I came along and I went through that period with really stretched from 2008 to 2013. I started rediscovering myself. I started leaning into my faith. My identity in Christ is what centered me in that as a child of God. What I looked at was people around me and what were we doing in church? And when I talk about church, not only the local church, but the global church, what are we doing to help society? What are we doing to show the love of God? And what I think I found is that, unfortunately, in these days and times, we are leaning more into certain patterns, like let's just say consumerism. We're coming to church, we're taking in the information, we're going home. Are we doing anything with it? That's consumerism when we do that. And so, what we're meant to do is come into a church, grow in maturity to a point where we can go out because our scripture says go out into all the world, right? Now, that may be your local community, or that might be something like I'm doing, going off and doing more missional stuff across the globe. But what are we doing with this information that we're given, this faith that we're given, this drive that we're given? And are we doing all that we can do? And so, in that, I also started looking at the women who are around me, the women who I was already loving on, the women who I was already kind of in a leadership role with as their mentor, or maybe side coaching them into some things that they had told me they wanted to do. And when I looked inside of the church and looked around, I just felt like there was a lot of wasted potential within the female part of the congregation, especially. We all know that females make up a majority of churches, not only in the United States, but across the globe. There's a large female population. But what are we doing to challenge these women, to draw their gifting out of them, to push them into roles that's going to turn around and help the greater good, help humanity? Show the love of Christ. And there's a couple of different dynamics that are going on. There's again that push of consumerism or contentment with the norm that we need to break back out of as a church. We need to get back out there and do what we've been called to do. And then there's also a little bit of a rub in the Christian community about what females can do. And this is kind of a theological discussion that goes on among us of how far up females can go within ranks of leadership. And I just am one that I've studied the scripture and looked at it theologically. I agree with the camp that says we are all gifted and that our gifting comes from God and our calling comes from God. And whatever He's called us to do is what we need to do. And so, whether that's pastoring a church, whether that's developing a business, whether that's going out and having a national or global nonprofit, we as women need to heed that call and respect the people around us that may disagree with our level of leadership, but keep pushing. And so, I wanted women to understand that first and foremost, we are working for an audience of one, if you will. And we can step forward if He has given us the permission, if He has given us the giftings, if He has given us that direction. We need to step forward and we need to be brave in that because there will always be the naysayers, right? Whether they are people of faith or people who just have faith different than us or people who don't have faith, there's always going to be the naysayers. But what are you going to do as the child of God who's been called? And so I really wanted to really challenge and engage that and see where we could take the women in the church who are so gifted, so talented, who are natural nurturers, who are natural birthers of ideas, and what would the world look like if they became activated? And so there are people, not only just me, that are just trying to engage and activate that part of the church and say, what can we do if we all come together and empower and equip these women who are just waiting for the opportunity to do good and to do more. But they need that guidance, they need that push, and they need the confidence that yes, you can. You do have permission to do this thing that He is giving you inside of your heart. And so that is She Steps Forward in an essence.
It is particularly difficult for women to step forward because men, I feel, are educated and raised to step forward, to do things, to be active, to fight, to fight for whatever they want, right? And it is accepted. But when a woman steps forward, it is almost being punished. Maybe I'm the only one feeling this way, but this is my observation that it is made very difficult for women to step forward because then you will stand out. And whenever you make that courageous decision to stand out, you have to have a lot of strength within you already built up so that you can face everything that will come at you, because there will come immeasurable hate at you, because you will then do things that the ones that were not brave enough to step forward would never do, are either too lazy to do, don't care enough to do, and you are the one that actually steps forward. And by stepping forward, you are getting into action. And as
Mm.
you said in the beginning, what are we actually doing? We are only consuming the word of God. We are consuming material things and stuff, right? Or motivational things, motivational videos and podcasts like this. But what are we actually doing after we have finished listening to it, whether it is in church or like this podcast? What are people actually doing? And I'm completely in your boat when it comes to stepping forward and having that courage and working on yourself in a way that you are strong enough and fierce enough to face everything that will come. And it looks like that you did. And you specifically focus on Christian women. And I would love to know, what do Christian women understand, because you choose to work with them, compared to, let's say, a non Christian woman? What is the difference for you that makes you choose them to work with?
Couple of different things in that. One, I feel like as a Christian woman, I understand the complexity of the Christian world that we live in and the non-Christian world that we live in. And so we are battling two different perspectives, right? So as you were saying, like there is still in many parts of the world a lot of patriarchy, right? Where men are on top, women are the second. Even in the Christian world, there is a little bit, and it's not meant necessarily all the time as a critical thing, but there is some in some parts of some denominations where they feel like the men should be in the leadership, the women should not be in those roles. Now, that we're not perfect. The world's not perfect. People don't always get that right. We are sometimes mistreated and mishandled, right? And not allowed to completely express ourselves. And so for Christian women, I feel like we are battling against what maybe some in the culture don't appreciate about us. And maybe because we have not always done a great job in the church of engaging culture, we're pushed against, they feel like we're against them, we're not able to really wrap our arms around them. And so we have to be prepared to go out in the world and really show the love of Christ in a way that can engage everyone. Because even though we're Christian women and working in our faith and we're building these businesses and ministries and nonprofits, we want to engage everyone in the world. That is our call and our commission. But we have to be solid, one, in our faith. We have to be solid in that showing love is better than being misunderstood. So we have to be clear in what we're saying and how we're approaching people. And so I feel, and we have to feel confident that we are women who can do. So I know that's going to be like a major theme that you and I talk about today, but it's so important to keep saying that we are women that can do, and we need to believe in that. And so because I'm in that space, and that is the space I very much understand, it's important for me to champion those particular women. Now, some people have asked me, will you work with anybody? Yes, I would love to work with anybody. I just ask them to understand that I come from a perspective of faith. And when they engage me, they're going to hear some of that. Just like if I were to go work with them and they were of something else, I'm going to hear that. And I don't ask them to concede everything about them. So I want them to understand that that is where we work from and that's what we do. But Christian women in general, I just think have had some mentalities thrown at them about where they can go and what they can do. They want to express this faith. We are also very um, rounded into staying in the four walls of the church, and we've kind of become a little isolated and siloed in the church community, and we really need to remember that we need to get outside the four walls. And so pushing women to get out of those four walls is very important. These are women who are used to serving within, and they need that ability to know how to serve without. And so I think people who are already out in the world know how to do that, right? If you're already in the marketplace, whether you're a faith or you're not, you know how to serve in your neighborhoods, you know how to serve across the country or across the globe. But there are certain women who have been kind of in the four walls for so long, they need that push to get out. And then once they get out, what do I do? This is a big old world. And so they need support. They need to know where to start, get some strategy, learn how to become sustainable in what they're doing. And these are not traits we're taught on Sunday morning. And so what we're doing is really teaching and motivating women and supporting them to get these three pieces: confidence, strategy, sustainability, because this is what's going to make them successful, all within, grounded within their faith. And so we say in the church world sometimes, we try not to go out and beat people over the head with the Bible, right? So how do you infuse your faith in what you're doing without that reference of feeling like you're beating somebody over the head with the Bible? So some people need a little finessing on that. They just need to see someone demonstrate it, and then they do a beautiful job of it. And so that's what we want to do. We really want to motivate them to do world-changing things, but be able to infuse their faith, feel secure in that, but also be influential, because what we don't want to do is turn people away. We want to influence people to be able to show them the love of God in a way that is effective. And that is kind of going to be the core of She Steps Forward.
And that requires quite a bit of leadership skills, which I see is a little bit of a difference between people who have a faith and people who have no faith, right? They're atheists. This is my general observation, seeing both worlds, different faiths and religions. And typically, those who have a religion have a direction because
Mm,
they kind of have someone or something that tells them somewhat what to do. While the other ones kind of believe that it is better to just choose whatever and try out everything until you find your purpose, right? While these ones from birth, most of the times, have already a direction. So this type of human being will be directed in a very different way, both positive and negative. As you said, there are some people who are very harsh or even aggressive missionaries, right? And those who try really to get people more into the church and into the word of God by showing and demonstrating how it may look like and what it actually is and how much good it can do, right? And there are both sides on both uh, the spaces and landscapes, right? But back to the leadership qualities, I would like to know from you what you think are the key leadership qualities that are essential for success in the marketplace for Christian women.
one of the things that we have to have is an identity as a leader. And when I say that, there's a phrase that they use that you have to know yourself to lead yourself. And if you don't know yourself, you're not going to be able to lead anyone else either. And so we try to take women in and say, you, first of all, you have some level of leadership skill that we can build on. Most women are leading families. Most of them are leading teams at work. They're in some capacity they're leading, but how can we expand that for you? But what we do with that is you need to know how to lead yourself. You need to know yourself as a leader. What kind of leader are you? There are specific personality traits that play into that, certain background traits that play into that, certain voices that play into that. So how are you, how do you see yourself as a leader? And do you know what your leadership qualities are? Because what we don't know and will never know is what it's like to be on the other side of us until we know what it's like to be us. And so we've got lots of tools out there, personality tests, leadership things that will demonstrate to them where their talents lie. And then we look at that and give them a more overall picture of who they are as a leader. So knowing themselves as a leader is one, having vision is the other. You have to be able to have a vision of not only where you are, but where you're going. And that's just super important. So learning how to have vision and how to increase it. And then the third piece for me is having a legacy mindset. You need to start with the end in mind. What are you trying to accomplish and what do you want to be known for? And that question alone will lead a lot of people into bigger vision, but more direct. This is what I want to be known for. So therefore, I need to get this step in order to get to that legacy. So legacy building needs to start up front, and that's a big trait of successful leaders.
And would you say there are very specific challenges that female entrepreneurs face, specifically in their first few years when they are starting a business or a ministry or a non-profit?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why we specifically focus on that 0 to 3 year entrepreneur, not necessarily a corporate person coming down into entrepreneurship, but a real ground level, off the ground entrepreneur. Because one of the things we're going to face is, again, having the confidence. What is it that we're here for? But also the technical things like, how do I fund this dream? How do I even get started in this? Like, do I have a real fail-safe plan in what I'm doing? Do I know how to network properly to get to the things that I need to get to the people I need to? I think all of these things are things that we really have to learn on the front end because it makes it so much better on the back end. And so when I stumbled into entrepreneurship, I had no clue what I was getting into. I just knew like I'd gone through that period of time. I had written a little book, and this is kind of what got me into entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, well, I got to promote the book. Well, where do I go to promote the book? Oh, I have to buy copies of the book. So how do I like budget to get the copies to even sell to people? How do I talk to people when I'm trying to sell this book? Like these very basic things that we kind of need to get into and kind of get started. How do you use social media strategy? How do you start an email list? There's some real mechanics of it that we get into, and there's so many shiny objects out there to tell us what to do, right? But it really comes down to what are you doing? What specifically is your trajectory of your business? And let's individualize that so you don't stumble into a lot of things and waste a lot of time on stuff that's not going to help your business. And so for that 0 to 3 year entrepreneur, they need a pathway, they need a roadmap. Here's where I'm starting. Here's where I want to go. These are the tools I'm going to need in between. And then how do I obtain those tools and those skills that I need to complete this path? I think coaching and mentoring is the biggest thing that we're missing in the 0 to 3 year entrepreneur space. We have not, as men have, leaned into that. Now, I've had some men argue and say, well, we don't always lean into it perfectly either. But I think women, especially, have not, because we're such givers, we don't think to turn around and invest in ourselves. And we have to break out of the mindset that coaching is, oh, I'm paying someone to tell me what to do. No, you are investing in yourself to gain a bigger vision, to get some skills behind you, to have someone outside of your mind hear what you're saying and give you some feedback, because that is going to create the growth you need to be the leader you need to be to lead that business, ministry, or nonprofit. And so I think we have to lean more into where are the mentor and coaches that are going to get me there. And I hope what She Steps Forward does is one of our big goals is creating more female mentors and coaches, because as female entrepreneur has skyrocketed, the number of female mentors and coaches are not catching up with it fast enough. That's not to say there aren't some brilliant men out there that we can learn from. My first coach was a male who I'm super excited to have had his wisdom and guidance, but wouldn't it be nice to have a female who understands me inside and out, the day-to-day that I have to deal with, all the complexities of my life, and speak into that? And so one of our goals is creating more female mentors and coaches. And I think women have to be taught this is an investment in yourself. This is not a purchase. And so that is one of the biggest things that we are championing for our 0 to 3 year entrepreneurs.
I agree fully with you. Women are really not used to investing in themselves. All they know is purchasing stuff, right? Buying stuff that they use and then it's gone, so to speak. But what is the difference with coaching and mentoring is that you can keep that thing that you've learned, the skill that you've acquired for all your life. This is the difference between a purchase or and an investment, right? Or spending and investing. And I see that on a daily basis. The fear of women not being able to invest in themselves. And one of my perceptions why that might also be is the amount of competition that is also among women. I didn't grow up with particular competition among women because I grew up in Asia. And when I moved to Germany, I noticed a humongous space among women where they were fighting against each other. They were picking themselves apart. Who is more beautiful? Who is prettier? Who has the longer hair and what have you, right? And I was so surprised by this thing that they call jealousy or competition, competing against another woman, that I was in real shock, right? And I tried to preserve that little diamond that I was granted with since birth to not go into competition. I cannot say that I didn't dip into competition. It sure feels somewhat exciting if you can compete against someone in a friendly way. But I can say that this is a dangerous game. And I'm fully with you when it comes to developing women, but not in a competitive way, but creating a space of women where they can really flourish together. Because there's some profound thing that women seem to not understand in the West. And I know I might get a lot of hate for that. They don't know that we all are connected.
That's right.
Quite literally, this is not some woo woo or I don't know what, some thing that I just invented. It is really scientifically a fact that we all are connected through matter that you might not see, that you might not feel. But the moment that we decide to tear another woman down, we are really tearing ourselves also down. And so I find it so much more alive and feeling more nurturing as what is my natural gift as a woman to lift other women up, which is one of the main purposes of this podcast, to give the stage, to give a woman a voice. And I feel we need to eradicate competition among women, because then if I see you as an equal, if I have no desire to compete with you, I will much more likely hire you as a coach because I trust you. And with competition, trust is being eliminated, in my feeling. And we need to move in a different direction. And women like you are really portraying and showing how it's done. And really, some may question why they should invest in leadership. Let's dive into the potential mistakes that someone could make if they don't invest in a mentor or a coach, a female one. Because there are also a lot of mistakes that can happen if you are hiring a male coach, no matter how brilliant he is. And there are brilliant ones out there.
It is, it is. And let me just say really quickly, I love what you just said because that is so essential. We cannot compete against each other and get to where we're going. We were meant for unity. And so unity is so important. So thank you for saying that. I love that. And so, yeah, so some of the mistakes are that we end up, one, not clearly defining our path. And when we don't clearly define our path, we waste lots of time, right? So, and this is one of the things I can bring to the table because I laugh and I tell people, and it's really serious. Like I stumbled into entrepreneurship, so I've made all the mistakes. So my goal in life is to turn around and help you discern where the good parts are so you can skip some of those mistakes and get to your success sooner, because the sooner you get to success, it means you're making change in the world. And so I tell people your success is my success. Let me look at the road with you, because what happens is if let's just say we're going to take a journey. Let's say I wanted to go from here in the United States to Europe, but I've never been and I have no clue where to get started, but I really don't want to ask anybody and bother anybody. So I just start planning this trip. Well, I think I know the right plane routes and I make my, get my flight scheduled and I think I've got my hotel all together and I kind of pick out some tourist spots I want to see when I get there. But then when I get there, because I didn't get any feedback, I didn't get any ideas. I get there and oh my goodness, the flights are so long, or the flights get delayed, or the hotel really wasn't what it looked like online. And so I'm getting discontent because all of these things are not happening the way I wanted them to do. And then my destinations are difficult to get to. I didn't realize that one was this far from the other. I've spent this whole time, what should have been a very enjoyable thing, frustrated, tired, and in the end, ready to just give up and just pack it up and go home. Where if I had just maybe tapped into a travel agency who already knows all the best routes to get to Europe, who knows the better hotels, who can give me information on these venues that I want to go see that I've never seen before. Now I have more of a clear indication of how this trip can go. I have options in what I can take. I can make those decisions pre-trip instead of in the middle of the trip or as I'm going. And I don't waste time and money in getting there. And so coaching is very much like that, and especially in this entrepreneur journey, because it's such a wide path. And there's so many twists and turns you can take in it. So when you invest in yourself and you have a coach who can clearly look at the roadmap that you're trying to build, they already can tell you some of the pitfalls that you might get into. They can warn you about some things that are going to come up. They can give you some real experience feedback on what you might see or feel or how people may interact with you to get you to a place where you're more prepared for that entrepreneurial journey. Entrepreneurship is tough. It's not an easy path. It doesn't all come to you all at once. It doesn't all fall into place all the time the way you want it to, and you have to be prepared for that. What better way to do that than to have someone who's already traveled that road turn around and tell you what the path looks like? And so that's the way we're going to try to help people get from where they're going to where they want to be on a more successful path, because we want to get them out there and we want to get them affecting their communities and affecting the world.
And there's also something else happening. If someone, for example, imagines, okay, I will hire a coach, or I want to hire a coach for a specific thing to build my business or a nonprofit, right? What I notice is that many women, because of their competitive mindset, they also have something else. Because their trust is so ruined, they also think, oh, what if she doesn't get me? What if she is a scammer, right? What if she will scam me, just take my money and run? This distrust is also something very huge that I'm sensing in this whole coaching space, that even coaches don't trust each other, right? And especially among women, this is almost like a toxic environment to be in, to be honest, because this distrust is so enormous. And this tells me also that these people don't trust themselves because, again, they don't have identity, which you mentioned in the beginning. They don't have direction. Now, once you have all that, you will have the ability to discern, because yes, there might be people who want to make it easy to themselves and rather go an easy route of coaching you, right? Delivering a high priced something while not delivering maybe the thing that you really wanted. But I personally think a coach or a person that decides to be a coach has a purpose and wants to do good. Now, that doesn't mean that they will. This is not a one-way street to be coached or to be mentored. It is a two-way street. It is a highway. Your level of investment as a trainee or as a student, whatever you want to call yourself, is just as important as the investment of the coach. So the type of entitlement that I also sense hugely in this space is, oh, if that coach can't get me the results, that coach is to blame, right? And not seeing themselves and what amount of commitment they bring to the table, starting that kind of relationship, because it's what it is. It is a relationship that you are starting. It's not like an exchange of something trivial. it is an enormous step forward, an enormous way of showing your trust to someone. I would love to turn this distrust that some people might still feel or have in their minds by letting you just tell one of your success stories that might have impacted you the most.
One of my favorite ones is to tell of my friend Michelle, and she would be okay with me using her name. We've talked about this. Michelle came to me a few years ago, and she had a vision for a marriage ministry. She's also a person of faith. She came to me specifically because I infuse faith into my coaching. And she had this vision of building a marriage ministry. She was using her past story, some of her trials and tribulations in marriage, and was going to turn around and help couples have more unified marriages. And it's a beautiful thing that she wanted to do, but she wasn't sure how to start. And so we started working on her God-sized dream. And as we plotted out her course, she got partially way through and decided that what she wanted to do was also venture back into the world of real estate. So she's been a real estate agent. She actually went back and got her broker's license. And all of a sudden, she got this bigger vision. As we're talking just about this marriage ministry, she's starting to see how she can take her real estate knowledge and use it for the greater good. And all of a sudden, this became more of the focus that she wanted to go to at that period of time. And so what she did was take the lessons of who is she as a leader, learn how to identify herself as the leader, developed a team that would help her within her real estate venture, and then developed courses that would help new real estate agents go into real estate with better training, because a lot of real estate agents get into real estate and they fail because no one has given them the proper training, the proper insight to how to start this as a business, to how to succeed successfully and sustain. And so she's taking all of these concepts now, and she's taking her faith as a faith-based person, deciding she wants to change the real estate agency, real estate world, and she wants to do it from a faith-based perspective where it's not all take. Come let me buy your house. Come let me sell your house. Come let me have this financial transaction with you, but more along the lines of getting to the agents and saying you can do good in the world with your real estate. And so what she does is, as her perspective of starting in real estate and having such a hard time, she's developed a what she calls a training development school. And so she's bringing new real estate agents in. She's showing them the path that they are going to have to take. She's showing them some of the obstacles. She's showing them some of the skills that they need. And so she's infusing that with her faith in that I'm going to do good in the real estate world where a lot of other people are just there for the business. And so she's been very successful in starting that. She's now got a few agents that are under her. They're starting to like grow this business on this level. And then on an added level, she's like, I want to give back. So within her dealings, her company also focuses on community-based efforts. So how can we give back to people in the community through our profits when they're doing good? And so they're picking some nonprofits to donate into. They're also decided to look at the housing market. People are struggling to get housing these days and be able to afford it. And so they are taking low-level properties and flipping the house, as we say here in the United States, and being able to give that person a chance to get into a home at a lesser price. And so that is their give back to the community. They want to do a community impact project through that. So Michelle has taken just in a little bit that we did, and she's not only like kept her marriage ministries there, it's in the background, but all of a sudden she saw this bigger vision where yes, I have experience in marriage. I have this experience that I can give to people, but not everybody's a real estate agent, right? Not everybody knows that trade and that skill. And all of a sudden that became the thing that she felt more led to put her time into. She worked what we had talked about. She became very confident. She developed her strategy. She's looking at how to sustain it. and she's doing a beautiful job. And I'm so excited to say that Michelle was so excited about the process that she learned and what we put out and the energy we put out, that she is now vice president of She Steps Forward International, which is our nonprofit piece. And Michelle is all in, and she wants other ladies to experience what she's experienced. And so she is now helping me to grow even further. And that's a beautiful relationship that we've developed. When you talk about a competition, like Michelle and I support each other in what we're doing. Yes, I am maybe the founder and the visionary of She Steps Forward, but I support her in what she's doing with both trying to develop her marriage ministry and her real estate, and is trying to support what we're doing, and she's giving her time to the nonprofit piece. That is collaboration at its best. That is seeing the greater good. That is two women working together to change the world. And I am super excited that we are growing. We're bringing other people on with us, and we hope to become a national voice as well as an international voice across Africa in the days to come. And those pieces are starting to fall in place. Look what can happen when two people put their minds together. And it all started with a coaching relationship that has now turned into a beautiful relationship, and also this extraordinary entrepreneur relationship.
I really love that. And you just mentioned Africa. Now let's go in that direction. I would love to know what inspired you to go international. You said in the beginning that you had a moment or there was a situation where you felt compelled to go over the ocean and really expand what you have originally thought you could do, that there's so much more in store. Why Nairobi in Kenya?
So here's the fun in chasing a God-sized dream. So my vision was just the United States in the beginning, and I developed a conference called the She Steps Forward Conference. This is how we initially started. And we had it here in my area of Virginia, and it was just a weekend thing that we were going to do. We had about 50 to 60 women who were signed up to come. And God, in his wisdom and his grace, in watching me step forward into the thing that he had asked me to do, actually somehow got this information in front of a young lady in Nairobi, Kenya. I kid you not, I had not done a ton of marketing. Yes, I had a website, but we were not chasing this globally. Somehow a divine connection occurred where this person saw our conference in the States and wanted to come, because what we named it in the beginning, we theme it every year. And our theme for that first year was She Steps Forward into Destiny. And destiny is a huge word in Africa. They want their destiny to be known. They name their children considering what they think the destiny of the child is, right? And so that piqued her interest. She was fortunately someone who traveled to the States, so that wasn't too much of an inconvenience for her. And she came to my very first conference, and visited with us for the week. And so I got a chance to really meet with her after conference and host her for a couple of days here. And we found out we had a ton of things in common. She happened to be a local co-pastor with her husband in Nairobi, Kenya, had a small following congregation there pre-COVID. And she said, I would love for you to come and bring this concept to Africa. We are seeking this there. And so we basically got on WhatsApp and Zoom. We use this technology that is so available to us in this day and time, and we planned it out. And in February of 2020, I took my very first trip to Nairobi, Kenya, and stepping in faith, stepping forward. We had our first conference there with 60 women that represented 5 different countries in Africa, and they were hooked. And so we have turned that into a missions trip, because obviously you can't travel overseas for just a few days. We've been able to hook into some outreaches there. We have a local orphanage that we champion. We have a local girls advocate where she's bringing them out of child bride marriage and rescuing them, that we help. And we have a disability center that a large portion of their clients are women with disabilities or women with children with disabilities. And so they fit our pattern of what we're doing. And so, yeah, so God just opened up this door. I said, yes. I bravely got on that plane He totally surprised me beyond what I could have ever expected, and it has turned into a foothold in Kenya where female entrepreneurship has been on the rise. They are a country of great Christian faith, and their women need this to pull them out of the ranks of poverty that they are in. And so it just became the perfect fit, and we have been welcomed with open arms. And we're excited to be traveling there a couple of times a year. And people can travel with us in May. That's one of the great things about She Steps Forward. We're very open and try to connect with our fellowship, and people can travel with us and see what we're doing over there. So that's how I got to Kenya. It was nothing but the grace of God, and it was one person saying yes, stepping forward, and just seeing where it all went. And that's the fun of chasing a God-sized dream.
I love that. But as someone who has never been to Africa just yet, even though I travel a lot, what do you remember the most from your trip, from your very first trip? Because I can imagine if you've never been to Africa before, how did it feel when you arrived and you saw this landscape and you saw the people? What was your impression and what do you remember still?
So it's very interesting traveling. It's the first time I've ever been there. Had done some traveling down to Nicaragua, but what really hits you when you first get to Nairobi is a lot of people, when we think of Africa, I think we think of the plains, we think of the deserts. Nairobi happens to be a very busy and bustling city, and there is a lot of city structure within it. So it's not quite as far as going maybe into some parts of Ethiopia or something like that. That's not to say that they don't have outskirts of the city that get a little more rural and a little more poverty stricken. It's hugely busy. And what I saw was just this mixture of people who were in the streets, very much not ready for their traffic pattern. So I come from a very small community in Virginia. It's still a little country, but not quite. But I get there and there's buses and rickshaws and people and animals and all these people in the street, and they're not really following a traffic pattern, which was highly funny. But it works. Like it works for them. Like you, and then you look at them and you think, wow, these people really have some challenges. Like I think it's good for Americans, especially, to get out of our country and go see other countries like this, because you learn that what we have, we are very blessed, even in some of our more low income levels compared to what they are struggling against on a day-to-day basis. Is the survival for them, even in the city of Nairobi, for much of its population, there's still a survival that has to happen. And so, but what I did find is they were so welcoming, they were so open, they were so receiving. Their culture is kind. They're very much big on family. The family units are large there. They're kind of staying together where we're very broken up sometimes over here in America. And they just are thirsty for knowledge. And I think that's what struck me the most. Like they're so hungry to learn more and to do more. And they're so primed to become one of the greatest continents that we have in the world, because their people want to do more and they want a better life. And so seeing that contrast where we have sometimes let's be honest, we have a little too easy in America sometimes. We have a lot more available to us to go to a country where they really got to work for what they're doing. And everything is so economically based to the dollar for them. But to see their love of life and to still want to do better, to always see that underdog coming out is what struck me in Africa. And it just made me fall in love with them all the more, because I love anyone who wants to grow, anyone who wants to learn, and they're just so thirsty for it. And so I think those are some of the few things that really struck me about their country. And it's a beautiful place to visit, and the level of the culture is welcoming, the growth need is there, and they really do want to find out what the rest of the world is about. Their curiosity is contagious.
And when you think about all the entire vision that you have now with your business, where do you really see it moving? What is the vision that you have for the next 10 to 20 years, what would you wish also to happen in the next 10 to 20 years when it comes to faith-based leadership and those businesses and nonprofits like you?
So we really want to be, again, a national voice here in the United States. We want to be a safe haven for women of faith to come and dream, to feel like they are heard and seen and validated. And we want to launch thousands of them out into our communities. But then we also want to go over and repeat this process in Nairobi, Kenya, and beyond if possible. Like, Kenya is our starting foothold in Africa, but I am totally open if God opens the doors to traveling around Africa, because it's such a brimming continent right now, and it's exciting to be there and see all the work that's going on. And so we want to be we want to be known as the safe haven for Christian female entrepreneurs to come to and dream those God-sized dreams, not just dreams, but God-sized dreams, and know they will be supported, launching them from the United States and from Africa. And we also want to be known as an organization that gave back, and that we become a seed grant organization for these 0 to 3 year entrepreneurs that really need some startup money, but it's super hard to prove to people why they should invest in you. And so we want to become that organization that can generously give into the life of these entrepreneurs and get them started on their road. And as far as leadership within the faith community, I think what's happening in the church right now, and COVID really brought this out, is we have to get back to striving to meet people outside of the four walls. Gone are the days where we as the church can expect people to always come into our doors without little effort. And so we need to be traveling outside of those doors. And one of the things that is exploding in the church, the global church, is this marketplace ministry, is what we call it. When you infuse your faith into business, ministry work outside of the church, and nonprofit work, we call it marketplace ministry. And marketplace is where people are. It's not that there aren't some coming into the church, but they are certainly coming in lesser numbers than they used to. The advent of the internet and online services is keeping people kind of more outside of the walls of the church in the convenience of their homes than coming and gathering on Sunday mornings. And so the marketplace is the most interconnected place right now that we can find people, service them, and show them the love of Christ. And so marketplace ministry is continuing to rise. I believe in the next 10 years, it's going to be the way, the vehicle. It's always going to be a local church. Do not, let me say that clearly. I believe in the local church, and it will always be an establishment that we need, but marketplace ministry is going to come more into the forefront of the hands and feet effort of the church. And I believe that female leadership within the church is going to continue to rise and to explode, and it's going to create efficient, fabulous community reaching organizations. We're going to make this place, make this world better, one business, one parachurch ministry, one nonprofit at a time. We may not can solve all of the world's problems, but we can do something about it. And I hope that She Steps Forward is on the forefront of helping to make a dent in that over the next 10 or 15 years. Let me just end with saying, if you feel like if your audience, if someone's out there and they feel like there's just something inside that says, I need to do thus and so, and you need a strong, supportive team of women that will encourage you, that will motivate you, that will come alongside you and say, yes, you can, She Steps Forward would love to know about you.